great.
And really kind of
Absolutely.
the different careers there.
I just saw anything that was so exciting. I never realized.
We try. Thank you for your help. I know you must be wanting to pull your hair out.
Yeah, well, Friday at 2 o'clock.
Hi, Catherine Gallagher.
How are you? I'm Tekla Murphy.
Yes,
we
nice
did.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. You're coming up from Annapolis?
Yes.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here. We're going to get started probably about a minute or so.
Okay.
We have plenty of food, so please have lunch. And the restroom is like somewhere. Go out to the left and keep going.
You know, careers with kind of
Past the elevator, right about when you hit the wall, you'll see the leadership. I'll be right back. Yeah, I don't know what the plan is, but no, feel free to
sort of how their time is all.
yeah, but you know what? We can move some people over. We'll be
I
fine.
was reading into there's this computer company that was never to and they do like computer programs and computers that are designed to encourage elders to go.
I'd like to welcome you all here today. My name is Catherine Gallagher. I work with the Erickson School here at UMBC. We offer the Bachelor in Management of Aging Services. We also have a master's program for those of you who may be interested in that. One of the things when I tell people that I work with the Management of Aging Services major is they say, well, what would you ever do with that? What type of career would I have? What opportunities are out there? And the truth is, every 10.9 seconds in America, someone turns 60. By the time we do this panel, almost 300 people will have turned 60, and that's just in the US. That's not talking about Europe, that's not talking about Asia. So we have a demographic that's really growing, and there are a lot of opportunities out there. And I thought, well, I could just stand here and talk to you, or I could bring in 3 living, breathing, real-life examples of people who have had a lot of success in this field. They work in business, they work in public policy, they work in IT, they're entrepreneurs. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel, and we're very thankful that they're here today to share their expertise with us. To my right is Samuel White, who is the director and owner of the Sunshine House Assisted Living Home. He specializes at the Sunshine House in one-on-one care for our elders in an accessible home environment. He's the director and founded the home. He holds a bachelor's in business administration from the University of Maryland, and he's working on 2 masters, so not a lot of free time, I'm thinking, in political science and public policy from American University, and hopes to attend law school as well. He's a veteran. He was in the Marine Corps, 8-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. He was released from active duty in 2001, but was called back in 2003 in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, the original Iraqi invasion. He volunteered to go back in 2004 to replace combat casualties. Sam's goal is to build assisted living communities around the nation that provide the care that our elders deserve while maintaining their independence. And he was also recently elected as a delegate to the Republican National Convention, which is very exciting, and he is an Eagle Scout. This is him. Then to my right next to Sam is Steve Gurney, who's founded Douglas Publishing in 1990 to publish Guide to Retirement Living. Drawing on the experience from observing his family, he created a comprehensive, come in, you can sit in the back. Packed house here. No, it's fine. You know you're busy, just get something to eat and settle down. Steve created a comprehensive publication to help others in the same situation. He has now expanded his publication to 3 regional editions in DC, Maryland, and Philadelphia. He sold in 1998 his company to Greater Washington Publishing, a subsidiary of the Washington Post Company. He also founded the Pro-Aging Network, a resource for senior serving professionals, and has hosted and produced a weekly radio show on retirement living options in the DC area. And Leke Adamuli, at the end of the table, is a graduate of UMBC, so an alum, knows what you're going through, and is working on a combined MBA and MSc program at the University of Maryland. He works for Erickson Retirement Communities as an operations program manager, working on the essential systems needed to enhance the level of customer service provided to the residents. I thought what I could do is start out with some questions, and feel free to answer them in any order you'd like. And while I drop my materials, People come to the management of aging services field and wind up working with people in aging from a variety of different ways. Some of them had an elder in their life that was very beneficial to them. Some of them just kind of fell into it. Some of them saw the opportunities. If you could just explain a little bit of the position that you're in, and how you came to work in a field that deals with older adults. And again, you can start wherever you'd like.
Okay. You talked about it in my bio there, but for me, I was about the same age as you guys when my grandfather suddenly needed a nursing home. And it really surprised me at how this turned our family inside out. You know, this gentleman was very active and independent, and all of a sudden he needed around-the-clock skilled nursing care. And it struck me as very odd that there was nothing out there to help people go make this difficult decision. And I look back at it now, and I was I was about 21, had just gotten out of college, and had a horrible job, not a horrible job, very low paying job, let's say, not much of a career path, and sort of figured, let me try putting together a resource that'll help people, and this will be a good thing to put on my resume, and maybe I'll get a better job. And so here I am 18 years later. I basically created what I think is a better job for myself, and have really enjoyed it. And so I'm here sort of advocating to you all on Career Day for two things. Is number one, that there's tremendous opportunity in the field of aging. It's literally frontier town. There's an old way of thinking that can be changed. But more importantly is to encourage you to think like an entrepreneur. You're at the time in your life when you can really afford to take risks, and or that first job thinking like an entrepreneur. So hopefully throughout the day I'll be able to sort of tell you some ways that you can do that. And I know Sam here, and really admire him because he sort of has that same passion. You could sort of hear it in his resume too.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor, especially to be sitting with these gentlemen. And I got my first caretaking or caregiving job when I was 17. It was for Life Service Systems in Pennsylvania, and I actually went there to be a groundskeeper and interviewed. And next thing you know, they asked me when I could start giving caregiving, and I was very scared at first because I didn't really want to do that. I was 17 years old. The last thing I wanted to do was worry about someone other than me. As I started doing it, I started realizing, because as you work with individuals that have some kind of maybe physical limitation, mental limitation, for whatever reason, there's always that first barrier that you may have. And that first barrier you may have is just because you don't know them. You don't know, and so you fear the unknown. It's to say the old adage. But I worked there the entire summer, and I left, and it really had changed the way I looked at a job, because I realized that there's jobs out there that you can do that every single day you have a direct impact on someone's lives. And indirectly all jobs do, but there's some where you have the ability to touch someone, to hold them, to speak with them, and enrich their lives, and same, enrich your life. So then I joined the Marine Corps, and it always stuck with me. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I tried to figure out what I could do and what I wanted to do, and I just kept on coming back to, elders and the impact that they had, because I was always close to every elder in my family and tried to get something from them. And so I kind of fell into assisted living indirectly, but it was one of those things where it just made sense. And as I became more schooled in it and got licensed and so on and so forth, and started building a company over it, I realized that there's a really big need for good assisted living. There's a really big need for good long-term care out there that really looks at each elder as an individual rather than a bed number or someone that they have to fill to make a bottom line. And one of the things I want to impress upon everyone sitting here about long-term care the opportunities, like Steve said. I mean, the entire industry is, every day I wake up, I find something else I could do that's going to have an impact, you know. And so, yeah, I'm not married, you know, I don't have any kids, so like he said, it's the perfect time for me to take this jump. And you guys are really at a unique position because you're at that position for whatever reason, or maybe you do have kids, maybe you are married, but you want to, you know, you want to see what else is out there, and hopefully I can give you guys some insight onto what there is out there and how long-term care needs good people like you.
I just want to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to actually sit down in front of everyone to talk about what I do and also why it's actually a great field to be in terms of long-term care. I got out of UMBC a couple of years ago, and when I got out, I was thinking about what field should I go into. I got a major in information systems, computer science, and business management. And as I grew older, I loved my grandparents. They actually took care of me, and I saw them as they grew older just go down the line. And I kept thinking, what could I do to actually impact other people to ensure that they don't go down that same route? And I had another job. I was actually working for a good company, making good money, but I wasn't still getting fulfilled. I wasn't getting that impact that I was actually touching lives. So I decided I was actually going to check out this opportunity they had at Erickson, and by going in there, just looking at how they felt about the residents, going out there to see what opportunities they had, and it's a growing field, but not just growing, but touching the lives of people and giving them a better life, seeing people as they grow older from a different perspective, giving them the opportunity to actually live life to their fullest. So they're enjoying life. They're just not living life, but they're enjoying life. So go into a community whereby they provide every single thing that makes life easier for them, from start to finish, from waking up to going to bed, to shopping, to swimming pools, to interacting with people, things that make them want to live longer. And eventually they actually do live longer. Looking at the stats of even the company when we started with a few people. Now we have 10,000 employees with about 20,000 residents. And we're looking at going in a couple years to doubling that amount to show you how much opportunity there is in that field just in one company. So, but it's not just about that opportunity, but it's about touching, impacting the lives that you go around and you see people and they enjoy their lives. They're happy when you greet them because they feel you made an impact on their lives. And that's what makes me wake up every day. There are times I do 12-hour days, but I enjoy it because I feel like I'm not just making money, but I'm working towards making someone's life better.
Thank you. Steve, you touched a little bit on the skills that you use on a daily basis. You talked about entrepreneurship, hard work, interacting. If this panel could just touch on what does a typical day, and I know there's no such thing as a typical day, but what does a typical day look like for you? Because we have people here who are saying, well, you know, there's a lot of opportunity, that sounds exciting, but what does it look like in the day-to-day? And then on that note, what skills do you find yourself using? Is it interpersonal? Is it financial management? Is it all of the above?
Well, I'm fortunate enough now, after 18 years, to finally have a staff that does a lot of the work that for me. So I serve more as a leader in terms of, you know, managing, looking at bigger picture issues and managing my staff to certain directions. But for the purposes of this panel, what I'd like to do is sort of step back to when I was 21 and just starting the business and kind of what skills I was using back then that have progressed to the point where I am now. You know, when I was that age, you know, you'd sit there and you'd talk to a guy who's really old like me, 42, and you know, you hear about, you know, financial management and all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, right, okay, I'm about 20 years away from that. And so the first element that you actually touched on is hard work, is that, you know, when you're out there, one of the things when we interview people in our company, we're waiting for them to say that they're a hard worker. Generally, we won't hire anybody who interviews at our company unless they volunteer that they're a hard worker, because when you say that, you've raised the bar for you in terms of the standard of who you are and what you're doing. And so I look back over my career, and the one thing, I don't consider myself an exceptionally bright individual or smart individual. I've made up for that in willing to just put my nose to the grindstone, come up with solutions, figure out how to solve problems, and just making it work. You know, the other element is that I kind of have taken things pretty personally in terms of when I did work for another company, I treated it like it was my own. And that sort of attitude made it very easy to start a business, because I sort of had this vision that, okay, I'm here working at this company, but this is my business, this is my own little world. And I absorbed a lot of information that that my coworkers weren't absorbing, because they were just simply going through the motions of working at an organization. And so I think those two elements have served me very well. And you know, I guess the last thing that I'm always really into is just passion. It's fine. You know, one of the things that you heard with all three of us is that we've got this very strong passion towards the job that we're doing, and it makes hard work easy, and it makes finding solutions easy, and it makes living on, you know, baked potatoes and crackers like I did for about 5 years or so a lot easier, because I was trying to, you know, solve a problem that I knew was going to make an impact in life. So that's my long-winded answer.
No,
to
that's
that.
now believe me, that's
So,
not long-winded at all.
Well, I can kind of be on the beginning side of what Steve was saying, you know, because when you think about I'm going to start a business, okay, and it's, you know, it basically says I'm going to start a business. You know, what is this business going to do? It's going to provide assisted living. That seems easy enough. But then when you start delving into it more and more, you realize that you have to be a little bit, it's kind of like a jack of all trades. You know, I can do a lot of things good, but I can't do any of them great. But, you know, like Steve said, I mean, if you have the passion and you say to yourself, when you start, like when I started the Sunshine House, I was working for a company, and it was an orthopedic sales company, and I had gotten to a point, I hadn't even met Steve before I totally, you know, decided to resign, and I was thinking to myself, well, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to quit this job and have my entire life depend on, you know, starting this business, go out on a limb there? And once you make that decision to do it, and you say, I'm going to make it work no matter what, no matter how many baked potatoes I have to eat, and crackers and water, no matter how many sacrifices I have to make, then you, in my opinion, you've already set the foundation. You already have that one skill, because you had the skill to take the first step. Now, that was very inspirational, I'm sure. Then it comes to the everyday stuff. I mean, you're an accountant, you're a janitor, you're a public relations person, you're a community volunteer, you are a caregiver. So you have to be able to have an open mind and say, okay, I'm the owner of this company, but that doesn't mean that I'm sitting up in, you know, a penthouse suite while everyone's doing this stuff. And, you know, if you're willing to have an open mind, and you're willing to be able to learn the things that you have to learn, and do certain things that you normally wouldn't do, or you wouldn't attest to the glory of owning a company, then you're going to be fine. You know, and you just basically have to know, if I was to say one thing, you just have to be a jack of all trades, and you have to have, like Steve said, you have to have the passion of what you're doing. Because if you start a business, or if you're in a company, it's with anything, and you don't need me telling you this, if you do something that you're not enjoying, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, it doesn't matter how much free time you have, in the end, you know, like you're not going to want to get up every day. It doesn't matter. So if you have the passion, you know, that's one of the big steps. But just be a jack of all trades and have an open mind, and then you should be fine.
Typical day for me, looking at it from a work perspective, is interfacing with different business units that the company actually supports. And the goal for having all these different business units is to actually ensure that the residents are provided with the best level of customer service, like she did say. We have different units from accounting to healthcare to IT to programmers to business process improvements that actually look at the different processes that we go throughout the business. And just by doing that on a day-to-day basis, you see how much work it takes, how much passion, how much genuine passion people are taking steps to improve the lives of our residents. And all that put together actually gives me joy, because you see different work orders coming in, you see different people from we have 18 different communities, and you get different emails from everyone from a different community trying to look for ways to improve, trying to enhance the service being provided to them. New technologies coming out, we staying on top of technology to ensure that we provide them with the best level of everything they need. Pool courts, security. We have security 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What systems do they use to track to ensure that these services that we say we're going to provide are provided to the residents? So looking at those metrics, reporting metrics, seeing that they're doing what we actually told them we're going to do when they came in, makes me feel better that we not just saying we're going to do something, but we're doing what we actually propose we're going to do to residents. And that's a typical day for me.
Great.
You know, I have one more comment on that. Going back to when I was in school, and I was a business major, and this one professor told us all, you know, if you go into marketing, that's a real secure field, because there's always people that are out there that need something to be sold. And man, when he said that, I was like, ooh, the last thing I want to be is a salesman, you know, in my life. That I refuse to be a salesperson, you know. It's like, that wasn't my vision of myself. And I talked to him about that, and he said, listen, it doesn't matter what you're doing, what field you choose. A teacher, a social worker, an accountant, eventually we all become salespeople on some level, because you're sort of rallying the troops, you're building a team, or you're part of a team where you want your passion to be heard. You're selling people on your passion, or you're being the receptor of somebody selling to you. And so, you know, I'm sort of saying, you know, at the end of the day, marketing and sales has a lot to do with our jobs, no matter where we are, in government or what have you. And so anything you can do to sort of help with those skills, or just at least be aware of those. This professor actually had recommended that if we had an elective, to take like a drama class or a theater class, and I, you know, never did that, but I wish I did, because, you know, look at us, the three of us right now, we're on stage sort of telling you, you know, about career choices. So,
What would you say some of the major challenges of your position are?
The biggest challenge is to make sure that I don't go under.
Yeah, I'd say that's okay.
But with that said, and this is something that I'm sure Steve had this, you know, when he was first starting out, and he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. And I can't wait till I'm in your shoes. But it's exciting, because you have an obstacle. The obstacle, when at the end of the day, you know, you have money coming in and you have money going out, you know, and then the bank, you know, they could be your best friends in the world. In fact, all the bankers that I work with know me personally, but they also say, listen, if you don't pay your bills, you're out, you know. So the biggest challenge is, and it's not, I'm not saying that to deter you, because everyone has bills, so on and so forth, but the biggest challenge is to have that in mind, but make sure that you don't completely worry about that as far as assisted living goes, in the way you deal with your elders, and in the way that you treat them, and the way that you try to admit people into the home. and that's a huge challenge because you want to provide care, and you should, because if you don't, you'll go under. But at the same time, you need to pay your bills. So it's a big challenge, but I think that should be, that goes without saying. Another challenge that I find in the assisted living field is really. I found myself getting so personally ingrained because not only am I, like I said, I'm the owner, I'm the director, which is the cool word that I came up with, but I'm also a caregiver. So you really get personally connected with these people, and I try to think to myself, because there's always, because everyone wants to grow, every business wants to grow, but then you have to ask yourself, okay, how big am I going to grow before I lose the very essence of my business? So that's a challenge. But as far as like everyday challenges, I mean, there's regulatory things you have to worry about with the departments of aging, Office of Healthcare Quality, certain things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis that aren't necessarily exciting. But other than that, it's basically just you just figure out what you need to do, and then you figure out how you're going to solve that problem. So there's a lot of challenges, but you've already made the biggest step. The biggest challenge is quitting your job and saying you're going to do this for the rest of your life. So that's the biggest challenge.
Great.
Biggest challenge I face on a daily basis, majorly getting the right team in place to ensure that when we say we're going to focus on doing something, that what we decided to do is actually done. Ensuring that process and procedures are followed throughout all the 18 campuses, and making sure everyone speaks in the same voice. That in itself could be very challenging because you have a new person coming in and you have new people reinventing the wheel every day. As we grow, if we don't have things in place, then it becomes scattered, and you find different people that don't actually speak one voice, and eventually we won't achieve the mission we actually set in place in terms of providing the best level of customer service to our residents, to the child.
You're all here today, and we're very thankful, because obviously we feel it's important to share what you've learned, and to share it with students who are in college or looking to make a career change. Why do you think it's important to get people, particularly students, interested in this field?
The main reason that I would sort of urge you to look at the broad field of aging, or to go to an organization with in the back of your mind that we're going to serve aging, is what we refer to as the silver tsunami. I mean, literally our population with the aging baby boomers is going to be a gray population here. So no matter what job you're doing in the future, you're going to more than likely be serving an older clientele ultimately. And the great opportunity here is that the fact that you guys have come here to this, and I like the way they promoted this. They didn't put anything about aging in the title because chances are, no, but chances are, like if you said to, screamed across the UMBC campus, hey, guys want to learn about fields and taking care of old people, anybody interested? No one, because, you're in a youth-oriented culture and you're at a young point in your life, and it's sort of hard to imagine this as a career path. And that is a great opportunity. The fact that so many people out there are not necessarily turned on about, it's not the sexiest topic, going into the field of aging, which creates a great opportunity for you to get in before the rest of the people are on board, because we're already seeing it happen. I mean, I remember when I started this publication, I got so much grief from my friends. It's like, Guide to Retirement Living, are you kidding me? They had all kinds of jokes. every single one of those guys now, my buddies back then who gave me grief, I've helped them and their families make decisions about where their loved ones are going to be placed, you know, and back then, you know, I'd go to a party and people would look at me like I was funny, you know, because I'm in the field of aging. Now, if I go to a cocktail party, it's almost like I feel like a physician. It's sort of like, you do what? Oh, you know, I'm looking at an assisted living for my mom. What do you think about X, Y, and Z? The other great thing about this is it's literally frontier town, because this industry is kind of built on a system that was created 20 or 30 years ago. And so it's ripe for change. And if you come into this business with enthusiasm and you want to make a difference, I think you're going to find that there are countless directions that you can go. You may have to struggle a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think that all of us in this business are going to be more fulfilled, you know, which is the most important thing. And hopefully we have made a nice living along the way. But I think the most important thing is to be fulfilled.
Just to follow up just on what you said, and obviously I want to hear from both of you as well, but what do you think, because you're exactly right, that's why I didn't put it on the poster, what do you think it will take, or will aging ever become something that's just accepted? That's not what?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually am here at UMBC as a master's student in this Erickson School, and the first week of our program, we had to stay in a hotel. We couldn't live in the dorms, although, man, I loved living in the dorms. I wish that would have been great. But I went back to my hotel room, and they had an HBO special on about, in the 1960s, Central High School in Arkansas. It was in the time of segregation, and it was this, you know, they showed these 12 African-American students literally having armed guards take them into a school, you know, and people screaming at them obscenities, you know, like upstanding members of the Little Rock community, you know, yelling at these kids because of the color of their skin and how they couldn't be, you know, in the same school as their white children or what have you. And, you know, what it made me realize is that, holy cow, look at the world that we live in now. It's not perfect. But man, talk about change, talk about opportunity for women and people in this country, no matter what your ethnic group is. It's almost scary. I actually had the opportunity to interview a major women's rights leader, Betty Friedan, and I asked her, you know, she wrote this book called The Feminine Mystique back in the 60s, and I said, well, what do you think of women today compared to when you wrote that book in the 60s? She goes, I can't believe it. I can't believe what women can do today. So I've sort of switched my way of thinking to sort of looking at, you know, changing aging as almost like a civil rights movement, in that, you know, 20 years from now, it'll be interesting to see how we view aging. And my hope is that it's the same way that we view women and you know, ethnic groups in our country. We're not talking about an older person, we're just talking about a person, you know. So that's my kind of, you know, thought on that subject. Obviously pretty passionate about that.
That's great.
You know, when I first got into assisted living, I just knew it was taking care of old people who couldn't take care of themselves. I mean, that's all I knew, you know? And, you know, that was 3 years ago when I first started, like, looking into it. And, you know, like Steve said, I mean, the opportunity that we have, it's like, I want you guys to go out and get a job in aging, because 20 years from now, you're gonna be like, I mean, it's gonna be worth it. It's kind of like the people that go in when Microsoft was no one, you know, and saying, hey, I'm going to give you some money, I'm gonna do this, and look at them now. Now, it's totally paid off to them. It's like taking that chance, but it's not even taking a chance. 75 million people in 20 years are going to be senior citizens, or in older senior citizens. And if you think about, I mean, I was just doing some math, and there's roughly around I think I said 18,000 to 20,000 assisted living homes in the nation. plus or minus. Yeah, I'm maybe not on the mark with that. And they range from homes that have 4 people all the way up to homes that have 150 elders in them. In 20 years, if there were 100,000 assisted living homes, and each one of those 100,000 assisted living homes could hold 200 people, that's not even 1/3 of the individuals that are going to be 80 plus. Now, there's a little caveat to that. I don't think assisted living is a total answer. I don't think anything. It's one part of the puzzle. There's a lot of services out there that you can look into, but the opportunity, it's just like I kind of like feel like when I wake up and I think about all, and Steve and I are talking about these village concepts or service companies or going in there, and it's just like it's an empty canvas because there's companies out there, but even the assisted living homes that have been in business for 20 years now are realizing that the public is starting to get like, hey, you know what? I don't want my mom to be one person in 150. I don't want her to be in a place that looks like So even now, the homes that have been in business, and there's a lot of good homes. I'm not saying the big ones are bad. I'm just saying even they are having to look seriously about changing what they're doing. And you guys are all at the cusp because it hasn't hit. It's like a little tiny wave that's out in the middle of the ocean, but by the time it gets here, it's going to be tsunami. And if you get on now, if you get on board now and you look and seriously look into it, 20 years from now, I mean, you're going to be writing the book. You're going to be owning the company. You're going to be the CEO of Erickson Communities. And it's really based on that. And it's funny, as Steve was saying, because people look at me when I say, I run an assisted living company, and right away they say, oh, really? So what do you think about this? What do you think about it? They ask me stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a doctor, if you want me to tell you about the different levels of care I can do. But there's a lot of prestige in it, too. I mean, and it's just, man, it's just it's just like, if I were to pitch to anybody, to anything, if you seriously take a look at it, seriously take a look at the fact that the impact that you can have on people's lives, but also the fiscal soundness of getting into an industry that is centered, I call it the elder-centered industry, and it's just really the opportunities are limitless, but at the same time you get to actually impact people's lives, get to make their lives better. And instead of doing something that's already been done, you sitting here can think of one thing that hasn't been done yet or that can be doing better, and then you won't be in a panel, you'll be in that penthouse suite, but that's getting ahead of myself, but just it's the opportunity. I could go on forever, and I have to be quiet now, but
Basically, looking at it from their point of views, they've spoken very, very well, and they've touched pretty much every aspect that I would want to touch on. But looking at my company, it actually started from just one community, and now we have 18, 19 this year. Year after, probably going to have 7 new ones coming up, showing you the endless opportunity in that field. Apart from that, at some point or the other, we are all going to get there.
If we're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
I mean,
but we are going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going to have someone that's going to get there. In addition to getting into that field, you're solving the issues that you would have to probably deal with a couple of years from now, or you have a family member that will have to deal with this a couple of years from now. But by you knowing that in advance, helps you resolve a lot of issues. You can almost be a physician by yourself, saying, okay, fine, I've seen this happen. Based on experience, you can tell where you're going. And you actually have different sessions, different people, different points of contact to actually go to based on one issue or the other. So looking at it from that point of view, that we're all going to get there or know someone that's going to get there at some point of view, shows you that there's always going to be opportunities in this line of business.
Yeah, and just to add one thing, and Catherine, as you were saying earlier, like, will the world accept aging? Well, they're not going to have a choice. They're really not going to have a choice. I mean, 75 million people. And these are 75 million people that are educated, that have an average of $5,000 a month of expendable cash, that are computer savvy, that aren't that have made, you know, their way into the world, that they can demand the stuff. You know, they are a very, not to mention the fact that senior citizens are arguably the most powerful and the most concentrated lobbying group in the nation, if not the world. But they're, like I said, they're educated, they know how to use a computer, and we're not going to have a choice. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. Like, okay, well, if they're going to be wielding the pen, you know, I might as well be the person that they're wielding the pen too. You know, so it's just kind of, you know, get on the bandwagon thing. Go, you know, join us. Don't fight it.
I'm going to have one last question because I want to leave open some time for question and answer. Panels typically end up with, you know, what would your parting words of wisdom be? But I'm going to ask, what would you say? There's a big emphasis in college and beyond on being successful. Mm-hmm. What does it look like to be, for you, and it can be personal, it can be professional, it can be both, what does it look like to be successful?
In my personal experience, it's really just making a mark on the world. You know, quite honestly, I sometimes feel like, you know, money is a horrible thing to sort of be, you know, to go for. I only recently have sort of focused on that aspect of my life just simply because I've got 2 kids and a wife, you know, a family that depends on me, and it's sort of a means to the end, so to kind of like make my mark on the world is that, you know, to provide for my family, I need money. But, you know, for me, I'm here, if you choose aging, that's great, but I'm actually here, if I had to impart any words, it's to empower you to think like an entrepreneur. And that doesn't mean, I mean, let me tell you, starting a business is an intimidating process. As you said, there's a lot of downside to starting a business. You don't need to start a business to think like an entrepreneur. When you go to that first job, treat it like your business, and you'll be amazed at how differently people view you. You know, Sam talked a little bit about what he worries about as an entrepreneur. And it's like having enough money to make sure everything is, you know, paid for and I don't go out of business. I'd say 9 out of 10 of the people that you're going to work with, if you go out and work a job, could care less if that company goes out of business or not, whether or not they get a paycheck. And what I mean by that is there's a lack of sensitivity. You know, it's sort of like, oh yeah, I'm going to go in the supply closet and pilfer everything, you know, and take it home, you know. And one of the things that I discovered, I thought I was going to fail. I mean, literally every morning I would wake up, I'm like, okay, today's going to be the last day that I'm in business here because this is tough. But one of the things that I always said to myself, man, you know, when I fail, or when I have to go out and get a job, I'm going to be a really good employee because I'm aware of a lot of things that I wasn't aware of when I was just sitting there at my desk waiting for my paycheck to show up every 2 weeks. Getting a paycheck is a tremendous privilege. And I only know that because I've had to go out and get the money to get into my paycheck, you know. And if you start with your first job with that attitude, holy cow, I can't tell you how people are going to be kissing your feet because the people that are hiring you, the people around you don't take that attitude. And it's really, that's my thing, okay.
Basically, I just want to say, just enjoy what you do. Success is determined by what you make of it. If you wake up in the morning and you hate going to work, you're going to wake up the next week. No matter how much money you make, to be honest, it can only go so far. I've been there, I've done a couple other things. I have a tax business I run on the side. But just looking at how you can impact people, having been through a lot of different things in life and seeing how a lot of people live their lives, I want to say just enjoy what you do and focus on making sure you can do what you're doing very well. Because anything worth doing at all is worth doing well. If you can do it very well, you can exceed at any single thing you lay your hands on. So just enjoy what you do and just keep focused and know that once you're doing it because you love doing it, you can definitely have a different perspective from you doing it like you're doing it as a job, or doing it because you're trying to make money, or doing it because you're trying to impress someone. No, you're doing it because you actually are passionate about doing it and you enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I mean, they basically hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you have the passion to do what you're doing, it doesn't matter what is asked of you. You know, if you have a love for it, and to plagiarize Dr. Thomas, if you're willing to, if you have so much passion that you're willing to go up to a line and pull its whisker out, you know, I mean, then you can do anything. And if you, on the entrepreneurial side of it, because you don't have to be an entrepreneur, and quite honestly, I'm hoping in about 10 years another company buys me and then I'm an employee again, because then I never have to worry about it, you know. But if you figure out something that you like doing, and you like doing it well enough that you kind of want to do it on your own, and then you make this decision, you say, I'm going to make this work no matter what I have to do. If it means that I have to be a bartender on the side to make up money that I'm not making from the business, if it means that I have to eat potatoes, if it means that, you know, I have to spend a lot of nights, you know, worrying about, and, you know, the people that constantly wake up, and I honestly believe this, if you wake up and think that today could be the day that I fail, you're less likely to fail because you're actually worried about it, you know. But it's just the passion, you know. And, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, I want to have a big house, or at least a nice house. I wouldn't mind having a you know, a boat, or, you know, all the things that my friend says they're not the need to haves, they're the nice to haves. But at the end of the day, you know, if you find something that you like doing, and find something that, I mean, social workers are the best example. Social workers don't get paid a lot of money, but they have to do so many hard things, you know. And every social worker I ask them, I was like, why do you do this? You don't make any money, and you work so long. They say, I do it because I love it, and that's it. And that if you're doing it because you love it, then you're successful, you're happy, you're gonna last doing it, and it's going to get you through those times when it is hard, when it is insurmountable. You know, just say to yourself, I'm going to make this work, no matter what it is. You know, if your job is a janitor, and if you do the job at the best of your ability, then you're successful. You know, if you're the CEO of a company and you do it to the best of your ability, then you're successful. You know, and if you do that, I mean, you got it made, as far as I'm concerned. Just do it in the aging studies.
Thank you. I'm sure there are some people who might have questions for the panel. I know the first one is always the hardest, or maybe not. So go ahead.
I have two. First of all, I was trying to get that statistic. You said 75 million people in America have about 5,000K income. What age? Because I know you were trying to differentiate between the baby boomers and the group that comes, you know, after that. What age did you base those statistics on?
That's actually retirees,
So
65 and older.
65, okay. And then my other question to all of you, when you're talking about the civil rights and the movement of aging and how it will proceed, don't you think that each decade has its uniqueness? I mean, we label them, we say Generation X, we say baby boomers, we say, don't you think that each one coming into that 65 plus are going to be different? I mean, when we're talking about we're all going to get there sooner or later, that might just be a number. That may not necessarily be a certain quality of life. Do you agree or disagree? Do you think health is going to be, because we're better educated, like you're saying, and healthcare and all that is changing so rapidly? Do you think assisted living will be more of a down emphasis and it'll be more just like community living? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I can just, I mean, like I said before, I don't think assisted living is the answer. And I say that for two reasons. One, because I say this to everyone that comes into my home and their family. So the best assisted living place in the world is never as good as your own home. It just can't. It just isn't. It's not. You can make it a home. You can make it an home environment, but it's not as good as your own home. I hope 20 years from now assisted living is still an industry, because then if it's not, I'll be out of a job. But I think you're very.
I don't mean that it won't be. I mean, our understanding of how much that we have to assist, because the generations that are coming, there's such rapid advancements in medicine, and because people are more proactive. They're doing things in their 40s because they see their parents, you know, and the Parkinson's and the this and the that, and they're being proactive. Do you think that, you know, what impact do you see that on assisted living? You know.
Well, I think hopefully, and I was telling Steve earlier, as I was reading a study that as the population ages, the amount of people that go into long-term care is going to go up for the next about 10 years. It's going to kind of plateau out, and it's actually going to start to decline. Now, that's relative, because, you know, we're talking about millions and millions of people, so it's still a huge industry. But some of the factors of that were, as you said, first of all, people are living longer, they're healthier. One of the, that I understand to be one of the biggest deciding factors if you go into long-term care is if you have a living spouse, because that living spouse is your caregiver. So that determines a lot. And then there's also the individuals that don't necessarily need assisted living, and I'm stealing this from Steve, but I'm going to do it because I started talking first. But you don't need assisted living. They don't need assisted living per se, but the everyday chores, everything that you have to do every single day, just gets too much. Walking the dog, taking the trash out, doing your shopping, you know. And so I think it's going to have a huge impact, and that's why I think people that go into it have to have an open mind. I think people were saying, you know, like, this is not the answer. This is one certain aspect of the answer, and how can everyone here collaborate and figure out, and then just have an open mind, you know. Because you're right. I mean, it's going to have an impact.
In the back.
How you doing? Since I have 3 entrepreneurs right here in front of me, I just want to ask a question about entrepreneurship. And for young entrepreneurs like ourselves, what advice would you give us as far as like getting into the field of entrepreneurship? Like, develop a business plan. We all know that's number one. That's where you start first. But after that, what advice would you say that we should take after that?
That's an awesome question, and I'm glad that you've got that mindset right now. I'll tell you something. When I came up with the idea for my publication, I'd never worked in a publication before, you know. So I went to they had this thing, Small Business Administration, and they'd help you write a business plan. Well, none of the people that they set me up with had ever done a publication business plan before either, and I tried my hardest to write a business plan, and I was so emotionally attached to this, it was very difficult. And I tried and tried, and I finally just gave up. And I had an idea of what I was going to do, so I never actually got a real business plan down on paper. Well, it's kind of hard to get money without a business plan, you know. And so, again, I had to go back. I looked into the SBA loans and stuff like that, and I realized it's like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the bank and get a bunch of credit cards that can give me cash advances. And it's probably harder to do this now because they check credit online. I did it at the on my lunch hour, and went to 3 different banks back to back and got $30,000 of credit card cash advances so that I could draw on that if I needed it. And it was over, you know, the next period of 2 or 3 years that I actually got a decent business plan put together. But I'm not arguing against business plans. Don't get too wrapped up in it. I like business plans that are about a page long. It's kind of like, here's my customer, this is how I'm going to operate, and this is what I'm going to do. if you want to start like right out of the gate. Like it's kind of like, I got this business idea and I want to get it started. You know, try starting it on a real bootstrapped level to kind of test the idea out. And because once you've tested it out just a little bit, that gives you an opportunity now to go to people and say, look, I did this on the campus of UMBC and I sold, you know, 15 t-shirts. It's like if I had a couple $100,000, man, I could do this nationwide and sell millions. And, you know, that you sort of put your heart and soul into it. There is, you know, if I started a business today, I would do the business plan route. I would create a long, lengthy business plan. I wouldn't put any of my money into it. I would go out and just shop around and try to find investors. But that could take me 2 or 3 years. And what I like at your all's age is you got the chance to just, like, a business is, again, it's selling 15 t-shirts on campus, getting an idea of what, you know, it takes to kind of pull all the levers to get a business started. So I know I probably am saying everything, you know, sort of anti-business plan, but there's something about hitting the streets and just getting started that is very powerful. And these guys can contradict me.
No, it's actually a good idea to know where you're going, have your vision, have your mission, and live by it. By you living by it and showing people that you're staying by your mission. You don't need to have all the right things in place to be able to actually run your business. You need to know where you're going and be able to get the right, just some things little by little. As you go along, you get the right team in place, you get the right funds you need, you get the right locations, and once you get started, once you keep moving, then you can know you actually getting somewhere. But if you don't get started, you're going to be there going over it over and over again until you decide you're not going to do it again.
Yeah, and what they both said, don't base starting a business on whether you have or do not have a business plan. I mean, you need to have a business plan at one point because if for no other reason, well, I think you do. You do definitely need to have a business plan because it puts down in front of paper, in front of you, what you want to do, who your target is, how much money you want to make, and it gives you a direction. And it also write more than one business plan. You know, you have one. I wrote one 3 years ago that I looked at today, and I was like, I was delusional. You know, I was absolutely delusional. But if I didn't write that then,
you wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. You know, so constantly changing. You know, you have to keep an open mind. A business that lasts. It's kind of like, it's funny because, you know, you see these rock bands. They just say, oh, they changed their music, man. They're not like the same they used to be. Like, No Doubt started out punk. Now she sings pop. Well, that's because she had to change to stay in the mainstream. You have to be able to change your business to a certain degree to be able to change. So write that business plan, but don't let it be the precept of whether you're going to start the business or not. You know, because a business plan is a tool, but it's not the end-all, be-all. But, you know, but definitely have one, you know, at one point.
Well, it's sad to say this, but we're about out of time. So if everyone could just give a round of applause for our panelists. I think you can agree this was extremely helpful. I know I learned a lot. This was quite an education for me as well. So thank you for coming. I know they do have to get on to their next appointments, but they might have a few minutes to hang out after. And thank you for coming. We have information on the Erickson School on opportunities in aging. We have major and minor. Feel free to take that. My business cards are also there. And also, please make sure that you've signed in.